GStanley with the Collector Car Podcast. Today we're going to talk about preserving your collector car. Now that could be anything from a brand new Ferrari to, maybe an old Bugatti or something. We'll see here. So I'd like to welcome Ryan Remington from Elliott Remington Auto. Now, what is it? Auto Studio?
Auto Studio, correct.
All right, let me do that again. So I'd like to welcome Ryan Remington from Elliott Remington Auto Studio out of Charleston, South Carolina. Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
Well, and yourself?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you jumping on the podcast here. I always talk about classic cars, collector cars, exotic cars, but one thing I never talk about, or very infrequently, is how to preserve these cars for future generations. Because when you think about it, we're just caretakers of these incredible cars, and I'm always super nervous with my own cars, as far as am I doing a good job? What am I screwing something up? You just want to keep the cars in as great of shape as possible for as long of time. So thank you for joining the Collector Car Podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah. So what I would like for you to do is you have a really cool business in Charleston, South Carolina, and I thought it would be fun for you to kind of review kind of the services you offer, but more importantly, how that applies to preserving cars for the future. Now, I know a lot of your business is probably a little bit of the newer stuff, but I also, in our pre-conversation, you mentioned a couple of the older cars. So if you would, give us an overview of what you do, and I'm going to pull up your webpage here right now if you're watching on YouTube. Tell us what you do, and I really love your blog post because you have some great questions I just want to review because I think our listeners will have those questions as well. So give us an overview.
Yeah, absolutely. Elliott Remington Auto Studio is what I define as a car collection management company. So we have climate-controlled automotive storage where we care for a variety of vehicles, almost something for everyone. I mean, we have classic British, we have, your modern day supercars and pretty much everything in between. Climate controlled automotive storage. And then we have all of your sort of what I call preservation and protection products, your paint protection film, your ceramic coatings, our window film, and now our dry ice detailing. So all really exciting and, just designed to protect the longevity of the car over its lifetime.
Yeah, so if you would give us an overview, because my first question is well, what do I need for my car? So should I have paint protection film? What is ceramic coating? Dry ice. I know that's a new way to detail. So why don't we just start first? Tell us, what is dry icing, or how do you say it? Dry ice detailing. What exactly is that? Because I have seen that popped up many, many times nowadays. And I'm just curious as far as what that is. And is it for a specific era car, or is it for any kind of car?
Yeah, so dry ice detailing is a really non-invasive way of getting into some more intricate areas of your vehicle. You see it a lot with undercarriages and engine bays, areas that might be susceptible to damage through more aggressive cleaning or have just years of built up crud, right? Whatever it might be. So it's a great way to gently clean those sensitive areas, remove all that build up without damaging anything, right? It's safe for electronics, it's safe for the exterior of your vehicle paint, right? It's safe for the interior vehicle. Now, I should say that you definitely want to use a professional if you're looking into dry ice because you can quite quickly damage a vehicle if it's done improperly. But done properly, we had a 1970 911 recently that we performed a dry ice undercarriage cleaning on, and almost all four of the suspension components at some point had just exploded, and there was just all sorts of stuff on the inside of the wheel wells, and we cleaned it right up safely and just really turned the vehicle around.
So what is the dry ice piece? Because you say dry ice, I think of fog machines for Halloween, like, can I customize it, give it more power? No, of course not. So what is the dry ice aspect? Is it pressure, like pressure washer, but it's the dry ice? Is it the temperature? Like, what is it that actually takes the
Correct.
abrasive gunk off of your car?
Yeah, so what we do is we get these dry ice pellets, right? So they're almost little beads. It's very similar to blasting, right? Bead blasting. So there's small dry ice pellets. We put them in our dry ice machine, and then just like a pressure washer, it shoots these pellets towards the vehicle, and that, almost instant conversion to, a gas is what does that cleaning, right? So it's very
Okay.
intriguing, and it's especially if you're of the nature where you like to watch those videos, it's very satisfying to
Right. You can
watch.
see the stuff come off. So different from bead blasting. Bead blasting, you have a lot of waste and beads left
Right.
over. So this turns into a liquid that evaporates.
Yes, no waste whatsoever. Super easy cleanup. The only thing that you're dealing with is, whatever you're actually removing from the vehicle.
How does that work on the inside of the car? I'm curious because you said that earlier, and I'm like, you would never take a pressure washer to the inside of a car, So
Yeah. So again, caution in general, but safe for use around electronics and those sensitive areas, right? So it's the evaporation. There's very little, what should I say, just leftover residual. It might come back with a soft cloth or something to dry things off, but other than that, you'd be really surprised as to how the cleaning works. And for me, it still amazes me, right? And there are people that are much smarter than me that came up with this idea, and it seems to be working great.
oh, that's really great. Okay, so this seems like one application that you could do a car from 1898, and it would work, right? This is for all generations, every decade of
Yeah.
automobile, right?
There's really no limitation to it. Again, I'll stress you can obviously damage your vehicle, if your pressure is too high, or and that just takes experience and testing and looking at your surface, right? What are we cleaning here today?
Right, right. Okay. Well, that's really fascinating. So, all right. Well, that's good to know because I know there's some providers, especially for pre-Pebble Beach Concord Elegance weekends. So those are the best of the best of the best in the world. They do go through a dry ice procedure, and these might be like a 19 whatever 35 Packard or something. Some serious pre-war car where they do use this dry ice application. So, okay. Well, next, if you would, could you tell me the difference between ceramic coat and like a wrap? So I know it's my understanding, tell me where I'm wrong, that you can do a wrap to protect your car. Tell me the pros and cons of that. I would imagine one of those is that's not necessarily for older cars because there's a lot of pre-made templates. You might have to customize a template for an older car. And then the second piece, the ceramic coating, I believe that's a liquid coating that goes on, but just kind of give our listeners a differentiation between the two and what you might apply one to some type of car versus another type of car.
Yeah, so the way I describe it is the paint protection film, right, which is a polyurethane film that's applied to the exterior of the vehicle. That's going to be your functional rock chip protection, right? So direct impacts, it's going to give you the best protection, for generally those impact areas. Now, you could absolutely wrap an entire vehicle in paint protection film, and we do it quite a lot, especially with track cars. Especially on the higher end. But there's some cons to that, right? It's expensive, right? Yeah, as you say, there might be it might be an older car that's not in a kit, or in a template. So it's called bulking, right? And that's extra effort and material. So it really depends on the client and how they're going to utilize the vehicle. Conversely, ceramic coatings, you're 100% right. It's a liquid that's applied to the exterior of the surface by hand, and it hardens like glass, right? But unfortunately, there's a lot of just, I don't know how I want to put this, but just the marketing around the ceramic coatings can be a little excessive at times. So there's a lot of misunderstanding about the protective properties of ceramic coatings. So typically, if someone was to come to me and they'd ask me about, I want to protect this vehicle, I'd have that conversation. Well, what's your driving style like? Because that ceramic coating is not going to be able to stand up to a rock chip moving at your car at 60 miles, excuse me, at 60 miles an hour. It's going to go through that coating. Sure, there's some protective properties, but really the idea is to preserve the paint and keep it in the best condition with a ceramic coating, as opposed to, like I say, that functional, protection that the paint protection film offers.
Okay. And I notice on your website, you do have a very nice Corvette. I'm thinking it's a 61, 62 Corvette. Do you ceramic coat older cars, let's say pre 1980 often? I mean, is that something that you see growing in interest and demand?
We do. And I think those cars, especially, it's important for, because if you get the paint looking really great, well, let's preserve that, right? Let's keep the paint looking that way. And, the way I look at a ceramic coating is a sacrificial layer, right? So, that coating is the one that's standing up to the elements, right? That's what's getting the beating, as opposed to your paint, right? And we all know, especially if you have an older vintage car, that your paint's thinning, right? And if you have folks like us that are working on your car, paint corrections, and I would hope, we do it all the time, but I would hope anybody that's working on a vehicle is measuring paint before they start putting a pad on a car, because inevitably you're polishing a car, you're correcting a car, you're removing that material, and the less that material you have, ultimately you're going to look at some point needing to have that resprayed or what have you. And get into all sorts of conversations about originality and what, value. And so by having that ceramic coating in there, you don't worry so much about, the paint underneath it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And what's the upkeep and care like for both of these products, for the wrap as well, or the vinyl, as well as the ceramic coat? Do you wash your car just like normal and wax it, or how does that work?
So wax is not needed whatsoever. In fact, wax and sealants can actually clog the coating and inhibit it. The best thing to do is, get yourself a nice Saturday morning, 2 bucket method, and go out and enjoy, washing your car. Because I will absolutely tell you, when you have a ceramic coating on your vehicle, it's a lot of fun to wash your car. It beads up. It's a lot easier. It just, I don't know, for me, it brings joy back to doing that process. So, every 2 weeks, if you can, a nice hand wash is by far the best way to maintain it. They can go through an automated wash. It's not the best for the vehicle, but it has to be touchless, right? So, if you have a vehicle that, or I'm sorry, if you have a wash that has any sort of brushes or those flappies, we highly recommend avoiding those, because it can, void the warranty on those products.
Okay. And then what is the life of each of these? I know I would imagine the protection film would be a shorter life than the ceramic. Is that correct?
It depends. We have various warranty periods, 2 years, 7 years, lifetime, right? And I have seen ceramic coatings that have, they're a 5-year or 7-year warranty, 10 years down the road, and they're working perfectly, simply because that person has maintained it, they've taken care of it, they've done all the right things, right?
Right.
So just because the warranty is a period doesn't mean that's necessarily the life of the coating itself. On the other hand, I've seen lifetime warranties a year later and they're absolutely destroyed because the client didn't take care of it, or didn't keep up with the maintenance, right? So it's really comes down to how you maintain the vehicle and how you maintain the coating. Now, the paint protection film is a 12-year warranty, at least ours that we use. But I don't ever really suggest pushing that all the way to the end, simply because when you're looking to remove that film, the longer it's on there, the harder that can become. And especially if you in usage where you're out in high temp environments, lots of sun. In Charleston, we have salt air, right? So that's something just to be considerate of. What's it going to look like when I want to remove this thing?
Right. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. That's actually great. Can you remove the ceramic coating, or is that, like, especially on an older car, when you decide to restore it again or whatever, how does that work?
Yeah, the ceramic coating can be removed. Generally that's through paint correction, polishing. You do need an abrasive, because it's semi-permanent is what I call it, right? Now, day-to-day use, you're not going to, be able to remove it. But if you get a quality paint correction, that's going to bring that coating right off. And it might take multiple steps. Our coating, for instance, has multiple layers. So, the more we layer that, the more difficult it is going to be to remove that coating.
Now, is there any scenario where someone does paint protection film and ceramic coating? I would assume not.
Quite a bit, actually. That's one of the things that we offer,
Really?
especially,
Okay.
yes, all the time. Especially for daily drivers and newer vehicles. What we'll typically do is a full front paint protection film application, and then we'll coat the rest of the vehicle. We also coat the paint protection film itself, because that gives better longevity to it, helps protect the film as well. So you can do both of those things. And if you have a new car, and car prices have gone up quite a bit, so it's always an investment. I think it's a great idea to combine those things, and it's a lot more cost effective than doing a full paint protection film wrap, full car.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of which, I pulled up your blog page here. I love the questions that you have on here. We'll go through a few of these, but I know there's a lot of different levels in pricing. It depends on the warranty and all that kind of stuff. But let's take the warranty out of it. Like, what's a base? Hey, I want to get the, ceramic coating for a car, or, the paint protection version. Like, what's a ballpark, I guess, is the best way. Is it $3,000 for one and five for the other? Give us a ballpark.
Yeah, so we sell our what is our Ion package? That's 7 years. So that starts at $995, for a sedan. Now the paint protection film, you're looking at about $2,000 for a full front. So depending on what the client's looking for, maybe we combine those things. We do have that what's called the Ultimate Armor package. So that settles in at about 3,600. You do both. You get actually a lifetime warranty coating, and then you get the full front paint protection film.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm looking at your blog here, and one question I am curious: how long does it take to do the ceramic coating to cure? Like, is that it needs to be in your shop for a day and a half? Is it 3 hour? Like, what's the answer there?
Yeah, so we have a new product that's ion technology, and it's pretty neat. The way I describe it is, if you had a vase, our base coat goes down, and it's like a vase full of rocks, right? And then you have our top coat, which settles in between the molecular structure of this coating, right? And so imagine grabbing some sand and filling in the spaces, and it all kind of shakes out. The great thing about this product is that before, we had to have the car overnight to cure fully before putting it out on the street. Whereas now we can have it ready to roll in about 2 hours. So once we get our
Wow.
coating done, it can be ready to roll in the next 2 hours. Now, granted, it's still curing internally, but as far as safe to drive, we can have a car in and out of the shop in one day.
Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting though, because my clients, they'll take an order of a new car, and before they even see it, it goes to get, ceramic coating or whatever it might be, because that's like the first stop before it even makes it to their garage. Now,
Right.
you also offer storage facilities, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So it seems like you're full service there. And I know I talked to you a little bit before this call, and I asked you what was the oldest car you've worked on, so to speak. So what was the oldest car?
Yeah, so I mean, amazing vehicle is 1929 Bugatti, Roadster, which was just incredible, right? And we had it originally came in for storage, and of course we went through it, did what we could to make it look as great as possible. The owner was pretty unique in ways that he really enjoyed the wear and tear of the car, so he didn't want to remove any of that, and he kind of liked that look. But just a really fun and interesting car to be able to have and store, to drive, and then also to be able to work on.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I appreciate your time on the Collector Car podcast. Please tell us if our listeners want to know more about your business. What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so best way to reach us is hello@elliotremington.com. Send us an email, drop us a line, come visit. If you're in the Charleston area, we love to have guests. We've got a great showroom and lounge space set up. So come on down, check out the cars, have an espresso with us, and just chat cars.
Awesome, man. And it kills me because I was just in Charleston, but I did not know you at that time, or else I would have dropped by there to have an espresso with you.
Next time, absolutely.
Next time. All right, man. Thanks, Brian, so much for being on the Collector Car podcast.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.